In this short video, we want to talk a little bit about the air handler diagnostic. Okay, we've already talked about the thermostat diagnostic procedures, and as with the thermostat, if you approach the air handler as you're going to start from where it gets power to where the air is coming out of it, you won't have any issues with finding the problem, correcting the problem, and keeping your customer happy. So when we come into the thermostat air handler diagnostic procedure, we're either coming from thermostat diagnostics, we're coming from blower motor diagnostics, but we're starting off by checking and seeing if the air handler has supply voltage. Okay, if the air handler doesn't have supply voltage, you need to go check and see if the disconnect or breaker is on. If the breaker's on, or if the breaker's off, you got to turn it on or put the disconnect to the on position. Okay, if the breaker is already on and you don't have supply voltage, in most states, you're not allowed to trace it any further, okay, in terms of what's wrong. You got to call an electrician, okay, because at this point there is a wiring problem or a problem inside the breaker panel or with the disconnect directly. Most states and jurisdictions allow the HVAC tech to work from the disconnect or breaker to the unit. Okay, anything that is outside of that, anything that is not a direct connection, is an electrician's responsibility, especially if there's wiring in the wall or along the attic ceilings and stuff like that. You don't want to do that. Your liability insurance most likely will not cover you. So again, if you do not have power to the air handler, disconnect is turned on, breaker's turned on, okay, and you don't have power, call an electrician. Okay, if you turn on the disconnect or breaker, and if you find there's no supply voltage, call an electrician. Once you have supply voltage, okay, then the next thing you want to do is check to see if the blower motor's running. Remember, when you did your thermostat diagnostics, where you started off this whole process, we had you either jump out or turn on the thermostat, the fan switch to on from auto. So the blower motor should be running at this point. Okay, so if the blower motor is not running, find out if the blower motor has supply voltage. Okay, easy to do. Take a meter, check the leads. Does the motor have supply voltage? Okay. If the blower motor has supply voltage, is not running, we're going to have you jump over to blower motor diagnostics. We'll get into that in a little bit. But let's go under the assumption the blower motor does not have supply voltage. Okay, check the terminal strip between C and G. Do you have 24 volts? Those are your wires coming from the thermostat. So if our thermostat is set to fan on, and if I do not have 24 volts from C and G, we have to take a closer look. So again, if you don't have it, check the thermostat wiring. Okay, if the thermostat wiring is good, you got to go back to your thermostat diagnostics because you missed something on the thermostat. If the thermostat wiring is not good, you have to correct that before you can go any further. If I have 24 volts between C and G, you need to check and see if the blower motor relay is closed. Now, this is assuming there's still a relay. If there's a circuit board, you're going to have a bad circuit board at this point. Okay, if the blower motor relay is closed, and if you're not getting power to your blower motor, okay, you have a faulty relay. Replace the relay. Real easy, but then you're going to come back and you're going to start the process over again. Okay, so now we have a blower motor that should be running. If you did this whole process properly, your blower motor at this point is running. Might be a new motor, might not be a new motor. Okay, so now the question is, you should have a yes on the blower motor is running. Check the air filter. Is it clean? Okay, if it's not clean, change the air filter. Then come back. Is the air filter clean? Okay, once you're completely done with your air handler diagnostics, then you can move on to your condenser. And we'll talk about that in another video. Okay, so we have left two things here. We have a blower motor diagnostics. If your blower motor has supply voltage and the motor's not running, we need to look at the blower motor diagnostics. Let's face it, the air handler is just a thing to move air. Okay, all we're doing with the air handler mechanically is moving air across a coil and out through the ductwork. So we have very few parts that can go bad. It comes down to, we have a blower motor, we have a transformer, we have some relays, and we have supply voltage. Check all of those parts. As if everything's fine in the air handler, you can move on because the problem's not the air handler. But if you come across any problems in the air handler, you have to repair those before you can move on to the rest of the diagnostic. And just because you find a problem in the air handler does not mean you should stop there. Okay, you fix it, but then you still have to do the rest of your diagnostics to make sure there's not more problems.